There are many martial arts styles out there, and no one can claim that their art is the best. Many people make that claim without ever encountering other martial arts styles physically, or at least getting some familiarity with those styles. Therefore, they're limiting their knowledge. You have many styles that offer benefits for different situations. You have 52 blocks, Muay Thai, boxing, capoeira, silat, sistema, swai jiao, bagua, xingyi, tai chi, and many more. If you're a student, you must always be learning, regardless of your age. Keep an open mind, and you will always grow. Aikido, the way of harmony in Japanese. Date of origin, 1925. The founder, Morihei Ueshiba. Place of origin, Hokkaido, Japan. The primary goal of Aikido is to gain advantage by using an opponent's energy and momentum against them. The art places emphasis on the continuous flow of a combination of movements and combines physical action with philosophical thought. On the physical side, Aikido incorporates a number of locking maneuvers aimed at injuring joints, along with throwing techniques from Jiu-Jitsu. It draws technical knowledge from Ninjutsu and is influenced in varying degrees by other Japanese weapon-based systems. Religious influence. The moral element of Aikido is equally important. The name, which translates as the way of harmony, describes the spirit in which training and fighting plays out. Its founder, Morihei Ueshiba, was influenced by the 𝐒𝐚𝐯 religion, which stresses the importance of finding utopia and extending compassion even to those who do harm. Early inspiration. Ueshiba's early experiences played a great part in the formation of Aikido. As a child, he was weak and sickly, so his father, a wealthy landowner, encouraged him to take up physical sports such as sumo wrestling and swimming. Ueshiba's grandfather had been a noted samurai, and the young Ueshiba grew up on the stories of his great-grandfather's prowess. Tales of his heroism undoubtedly led him to the study of Japanese martial arts. His desire to be strong and to protect himself and his family was further galvanized when he witnessed his father suffering a vicious beating at the hands of the followers of an opposing politician. During military service, Ueshiba received sporadic martial training, but in 1912, after moving to Hokkaido with his wife, he began to take his martial arts training to a new level. He traveled widely and studied with a number of renowned teachers, one of whom, Sokaku Takeba Sensei, opened his eyes to the Budo. His short study under this master inspired him to look further into Japanese arts. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, Ueshiba taught his system under the name of Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. This early version included a variety of ateme or strikes aimed at vulnerable points on the body, and its approach to attacking and defending was less circular and flowing than the later version of the system. Divine knowledge. As Ueshiba grew in age and experience, he became more spiritual. Many experts put the date of the founding of Aikido as we know it today to 1925, following an incident in which an unarmed Ueshiba defeated yet did not harm a naval officer armed with a wooden sword. Later, walking in the garden, Ueshiba had a spiritual awakening. He said, "I was able to understand the whispering of birds and was clearly aware of the mind of God, the creator of the universe." Another spiritual experience came during World War II, when Ueshiba had a vision of the great spirit of peace. Of this he said, "The way of the warrior has been misunderstood. It is not a means to kill and destroy others, Those who seek to compete and better one another are making a terrible mistake. To smash, injure, or destroy is the worst thing a human can do. The real way of a warrior is to prevent such slaughter. It is the art of peace, the power of love. Today, Aikido is one of the most popular martial arts and is practiced all over the world. Devotees remember its founder as a profound man who transcended the limitations of the physical, transcended the limitations of the technical aspects of martial arts, instead incorporating rigid moral and philosophical elements into his art, which stress harmony, compassion, and understanding even in the face of aggression. Ueshiba, born in 1883 in Tanabe, Wakayama, Japan. Ueshiba was the only son in a family of 5 children. Sometimes known by his title O-Sensei, or Great Teacher, Ueshiba became proficient in a number of martial arts during his life, and many myths surround his prowess. Legend has it that he was able to evade a number of students attacking him simultaneously with swords, and that he could knock down opponents with the force of his shout. Drunken Monkey. This is a variation of the popular monkey-style kung fu that aims to imitate the movements of a monkey that is drunk in order to confuse an opponent. Although forms are short, there are a number of rolling, tumbling, and falling techniques to master, alongside mid-level kicks aimed at the stomach and groin. Practitioners are encouraged to relax when executing techniques such as palm facing down striking technique. Unusually for drunken style systems, the drunkenness of Drunken Monkey does not start until halfway through the form. When it begins, the action punctuates the movements, showing a clear change in tactics, style, and execution. Inspiration for this style derives from the central character in the 16th century Chinese novel Journey to the West, Sun Wukong, who was later popularized in the 1970s television series Monkey. In one part of the book, the monkey steals the spiritual peaches from heaven's peach tree and then drinks the wine that was reserved for a heavenly party for the immortals. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, the monkey defeats heaven's warriors before he is finally subdued by Buddha. Those who developed the system clearly understood the connection between alcohol and violence and its emboldening qualities in particular. And although practitioners are aiming to mimic the actions of a drunken monkey when fighting, drinking alcohol is not encouraged when training. 5 guiding principles. The 5 main principles uniting the system are: the monkey must be deceptive and poisonous to his opponents. He must destroy their attacks. He must be unpredictable. He must bluff them, and he must frighten them. Practitioners are encouraged to demonstrate all of those characteristics when fighting and when performing routines. Eskrima. It's an indigenous art of the Philippines with no known founder. A Filipino martial art that focuses on armed combat with a stick, a sword, or a machete. Eskrima is characterized by its battle-proven techniques. It is also known as Eskrima Kali, particularly in the United States and Europe, and Harness de Mano, meaning harness of the hands in Spanish. Although many Eskrima schools can trace their lineage back to different tribes and regions of the Philippines, little is known of the art's origins because it was passed on in an oral tradition. Some people suggest it was influenced by early Indian and Malay martial arts, as well as by Silat from the Malay archipelago. What is known, however, is that the Spanish conquistadors, after arriving in the Philippines in the 16th century, engaged in skirmishes with tribesmen who use indigenous weapons and techniques. Order out of chaos. During the country's conflict-wrought history, martial arts developed into highly efficient systems, and recent systemization of the arts has enabled them to be passed on to students in an easily absorbable curriculum. The art is also taught to Filipino military organizations. Eskrima has many different forms and most emphasize weapons-based training followed by empty hand movements. The stick is the most common weapon. Students initially train with a padded stick and also a slightly thicker wooden training stick. Then they train with a rattan cane, which is about 2 feet in length and which has been fire-hardened and varnished. Employed swiftly, it can easily crack a coconut with a flick of a wrist. Students also train with blades, the most common weapon employed in street crime in the Philippines. Keeping it simple. Eskrima is taught in mass and in a simplified manner. Flashy and spectacular movements are often refined during sparring matches, in which practitioners wear padded body armor, helmets, and hand mitts. However, while simplicity is favored for teaching purposes, the system also has a deeper and more complex methodology that can take decades to master. Experienced practitioners can fight with either weapons or with empty hands. The system uses any method that might work in a fight and includes hand and foot strikes, some grappling and throwing moves, biting and gouging. Practitioners may also include gouging, punching, throwing, or shoving when using weapons. Common training techniques include the use of the solo stick, double stick, sword, and stick or stick and dagger, known as espada y daga. Some systems specialize in other weapons such as the whip, staff, and a projectile-based weapon that resembles a 9-inch nail. It is common to see the latter being thrown into bamboo trees as a way of developing accuracy. When used in combat, it is unlikely to kill, but it will distract an opponent long enough to either escape or draw another weapon. Diverse beginnings. Eskrima is practiced as a sport in some parts of the Philippines, although there is little standardization of rules. Traditional practitioners claim the set of rules promoted by the World Eskrima Kali Arnis Federation, in which practitioners fight according to a 10-point system. It tends to overemphasize offensive techniques rather than deflective and defensive ones. Critics also point out the disorganized appearance of the fights, with participants bashing each other as quickly as they can with a stick as opposed to applying good, solid techniques. Varying techniques. In combat, a player must study his body alignment in relation to his opponent and ensure that the tip of the weapon strikes vulnerable spots of an opponent's body. In competition, however, points are more likely to be awarded for reasonably effective touches. Weapons are considered to be an extension of the body, and footwork generally follows a triangular pattern. Thus, when a participant moves in a direction, his 2 feet always occupy the 2 corners of an imaginary triangle on the floor. If he steps forward, he steps onto the triangle's imaginary 3rd corner so that no leg ever crosses the other at any time. This ensures a degree of stability and allows the player to use good leverage in his techniques and throw physical force from the ground into his hand or weapon. Aikido, the way of coordinated power in Korean. Origin is 1950s. The founder is Choi Young-soo. Aikido is a systemized form of combat that uses throws, restraints, locks, chokes, kicks, and strikes. The system is sweetly and succinctly described in the Aikido poem, As the flowing stream penetrates and surrounds its obstructions, and dripping water eventually penetrates the stone, so does the Hapkido's strength flow in and through his opponents. The principles of focus, balance, and leverage underpin Hapkido. Timing and motion on the physical plane can also be adopted into the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual realms. Influences on Hapkido. Over 2,000 years of tradition have influenced Hapkido, including the ancient tribal techniques or Sado Musul of archery, sword, and knife fighting, which may have been practiced on horseback. Confucian doctrine shaped its philosophy, while Buddhism taught warriors to meet their responsibilities and act with benevolence. Martial arts such as Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, and Karate contributed to Hapkido's techniques. Added to this, the kicking and striking techniques from Korean arts such as Taekwondo and Subak fermented Hapkido's collection of techniques into a way of living rather than just a fighting method. Modern Hapkido. After Choi Young-soo founded the modern art of Hapkido in the 1950s, only small groups practiced it. Later, through 𝐂𝐚𝐯𝐿, the head Hapkido instructor to the presidential bodyguard, Hapkido became very popular in Korea and abroad. Hapkido's emphasis is on self-defense as opposed to sport. Students learn to use weapons as well as ways of defending themselves against an untrained opponent who is likely to mount an unusual smothering type attacks rather than a more coordinated linear one. They learn to strike the pressure points of acupuncture in order to unbalance opponents prior to a throw or lock or to disable them. To become a master of Hapkido, practitioners must grasp, apply, and live by three principles. Water moves around an object, yet never loses force. The circle represents never-ending continuous movement, and harmony applied internally must also be directed externally to every situation. Judo. In Japanese, it means the gentle way. It was originated in the 19th century, and the founder of Judo is Kano Jigoro from Japan. Originally named Kano Jui Do, or by its founder Judo, is based on several schools of Jiu-Jitsu, including the Tenin Shinyo Ryu, the Kito Ryu, and the Fusen Ryu. Jigoro's system was in part born of a strong desire to overcome the disadvantages of his small stature. Judo emphasizes the technical study of leverage, which is paramount to the successful felling of opponents of greater stature. Defensive maneuvers. The different stages of combat in Judo include the standing and ground phase, the guard and body scissors. Techniques include joint locks, chokes, and strangulation as a form of self-defense. It is a close-quarter combat art form which is both practical and highly effective. Although players are not allowed to strike or thrust into opponents during competition, these moves are necessary during kata set forms. Due to its excellent grappling techniques, many mixed martial artists fighters use Judo as a basis for their groundwork and offensive takedown strategies. Throwing techniques. Unlike some other wrestling systems, the main principle for throwing an opponent in Judo is not to kill, but to shock by smashing the body forcefully to the ground, after which a lock or stranglehold can be more easily applied and victory achieved. There are four aspects to all throwing techniques. Off-balancing, known in Japanese as kuzushi, is when a player aims to grab, pull, or push his opponent creating a split-second opportunity for forward or backward momentum and unbalancing. Body positioning is vital during that moment. The player must move into or away from the opponent, preparing to unleash a sudden burst of power and utilize leverage from the ground to unbalance him or her. Next comes the execution, in which the player swiftly executes the chosen technique. The finisher is the application of the final move, whether a smashing into the ground or a follow-up technique such as a stranglehold, lock, or choke. Evolution of rules. It is interesting to note that over the last century, the rules have changed, reflecting the art's growing departure from its original samurai traditions and jiu-jitsu origins. For example, in 1905, the rules stated that in order to effect a victory in a pinning or hold-down technique, it was necessary to hold an opponent down with both shoulder blades touching the ground for only 2 seconds, the time it would take in real combat for a victor to draw a weapon and effect a kill. Now a player must hold down an opponent for the time required to apply an effective barrage of strikes, should this be a real fistfight. The scoring also differs in that points awarded are determined by how long the opponent is held down. The point system. Penalties are awarded if a player uses an illegal technique or is inactive for too long, and fighting is stopped if a player falls out of the playing area. There are 4 types of point. The ippon is a winning point awarded for a perfect throw, a hold or of a sufficient duration, or a submission. A waza-ari is a half point awarded for a good throw or for a 20-second hold. If scored twice, this is considered a full point, leading to a win. Yuko and koka are tiebreakers awarded for a 15 or 10-second hold. Learn from other masters. You may not live long enough to learn from your own. Statement by 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐮𝐭, founder of Judo. Vladimir Putin, the former president of Judo, the president of Russia, is a judo enthusiast. He began training at the age of 14 in judo and sambo. 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐿, born into a well-to-do family in 1860, 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐿's personal story sheds light on his popular sport. Small in stature and bullied at school and college, he was unable to defend himself despite studying jiu-jitsu. At 18, he went to study with Fukuda Hasinosuke, a master of Tenjin Shinryu, who favored technique training over kata. He later studied with a number of reputable masters, many of whom encouraged free practice. This, coupled with 𝐀𝐻's size, sowed the seeds for his system of judo. Kendo, the way of the sword, originated in the 18th century, and the founder was Naganuma Shirozaemon Kunisato in Japan. Kendo was developed from sword techniques used in the ancient battlefields of Japan. This art of fencing combines philosophical and sporting elements. With the advent of the gun, battlefield training lost much of its practical value, and the emphasis changed from warriorship to education and spiritual discipline. Modern Kendo is believed to have been created by Naganuma Kunisato in the 18th century. It was he who implemented the use of the bamboo sword known as the shinai and the distinctive bogu armor and helmets. The Zen influence. As a martial art, Kendo relies heavily on the Zen philosophy of empty mind, known in Japanese as Mushin. This encourages instinctive actions, bypassing the need for conscious thought and saving precious moments in conflict situations. This concept also has practical applications in the day-to-day lives of practitioners. many of whom report an increased ability to deal with unfamiliar or unexpected situations. Technical qualifications. In 1902, the Kendo ranking system was created by the Dai Nippon Butoku Kai, an organization set up by the Japanese government in 1895 to solidify, promote, and standardize all martial systems and disciplines, and remains the basis of most curriculums. There are 6 ranks, known as Kyu, for beginners and 10 Dan or levels of degree for advanced players. The first 8 grades are awarded via examination. The latter grades are awarded after nomination and examination. Honorary degrees for instructorship are based on skill, ability to lead and to judge character, and for contributions made toward the advancement of the art of Kendo. Practice and competition. The shinai used by junior high school centers in competition training is 44 inches long and weighs 13 to 16 ounces. The high school shinai differs slightly, being approximately 45 inches long and weighing 16 to 17.5 ounces. The adult shinai is slightly larger at 46.5 inches in length and weighs more than 17.5 ounces. Fights take place in a ring, and points are awarded for target strikes to specified parts of the body and for thrusting movements. The winner is the first competitor to score 2 points within the maximum 5-minute time limit. It is said that the ignorant are obstructed by ignorance, while the intellectuals are obstructed by intellectual knowledge. One way of getting past these obstacles and approaching inherent knowledge is to let go of whatever comes to mind. This is written by Muso Kokushi, advisor to emperors and shoguns. Lethwei. Lethwei is a traditional kickboxing art similar to its sibling arts of Muay Thai, Tomoe, and Pradel Sere. While Muay Thai is often referred to as the science of 8 limbs, Lethwei is sometimes known as the science of 9 limbs because it incorporates the use of the headbutt as well as hands, feet, elbows, and knees. Bare knuckle tradition. Stylistically, Lethwei draws its influences from Indian styles of fighting and the bare knuckle origins of Western boxing, rather than from Thai or other martial arts from Southeast Asia. Its moves are typically slow and strong, and Lethwei boxers are likely to make heavy strikes aimed at knocking out opponents. In the past, Burmese boxers wrapped their hands in hemp or cloth. Although the art has recently taken on more sporting and competitive elements, the bare knuckle or hemp-wrapped fist origins of the style inform much of the fighting methodology. Traditionally, Lethwei fights were held outdoors in sand pits, where takedowns and sometimes biting or gouging were permitted, and wins were decided by either a clean or technical knockdown when a fighter could no longer fight. Also, bloodshed was common and death not uncommon. As a result, boxers concentrated their training on extreme conditioning and absorbing, punishing force. They spent a great deal of their training time in preparing to absorb impacts and in conditioning their striking weapons, particularly their fists, knees, and hands. The modern era. Although the traditional form still flourishes, Lethwei was modernized in the 1930s with the introduction of safety equipment such as head guards and boxing gloves. Fights were held in boxing rings, rounds were timed, and headbutts prohibited. In 1996, a more marketable branch of Lethwei was formed called Myanmar Traditional Boxing. Its goal is to stand alongside Muay Thai in the wider sporting world. Ninjutsu. Explanation. School of endurance, perseverance, and forbearance in Japanese. Date of origin, the 7th century. Founder, 𝐸𝐴. Place of origin, Shiga Prefecture, Japan. The ninja were groups of assassins and spies who fought and hunted in the mountainous regions of Japan. They propagated many myths about themselves which instilled great fear into their enemies. Those myths still exist today, reinforced by the popular media. The ninja symbol is the character nin, which means endurance, tolerance, and strength. The pictograph of a knife above a heart represents self-discipline. Early history. Practitioners credit the origins of the art to 𝐸𝐴, a warrior monk who set up a training camp in the Togakuri mountain range. The sect existed in isolation for 500 years until 1165, when Daisuke Nishina, a clan member, ran away to the Iga province. There he came under the tutorage of Kain Boshi, a mystic warrior and monk, which greatly influenced his training, adding esoteric philosophies to his fighting and tactical guerrilla skills. Ninjas and samurai. In its original form, the art was geared to the needs of the assassin, with an emphasis on concealment, infiltration, and spying. Opportunities for employment among the ninja peaked during medieval times, when warring factions became better organized and the need for conventional battle tactics became vital to success. It is a widely held misconception that the ninja were sworn enemies of the samurai. In fact, many were also samurai who took on assassination jobs or gathered intelligence for opposing samurai clans as a way to raise their status and financial wealth. However, there were many battles between them, largely instigated by warlords who had gathered samurai militia and felt threatened by the ninjas' expertise in destabilizing power bases. Teaching and training. In the past, the art of ninjutsu was practiced and taught in a strict code of secrecy from master to disciple, and teaching as a profession was discouraged by the ninja until quite recently. Today, there are many different schools of ninjutsu, the majority of which teach skills that originated from samurai fighting arts, spiritual refinement, armed and unarmed combat, explosives, training, stealth, water training, military strategy, escape, horsemanship, espionage, geography, and meteorology. Principles of ninjutsu. Ninjutsu's basic tenets are summed up in a poem probably composed by a warrior known as Yamabushi. The essence of ninjutsu. My parents are the heaven and the earth. My home is my body. My power is my loyalty. My magic is my training. My life and death is breathing. My body is control. My eyes are the sun and the moon. My ears are sensitivity. My laws are self-protection. My strength is adaptability. My ambition is taking every opportunity with fullness. My friend is my mind. My enemy is carelessness. My protection is right action. My weapons are everything that exists. My strategy is one foot in front of the other. My way is ninjutsu. Okinawan Karate. Okinawan empty hand in Japanese. It was originated in the 19th century. The development of karate as a form of unarmed combat is in large part due to the ban on carrying weapons imposed during the reign of Okinawa's King Shoshin, 1477 to 1526, and following the Satsuma clan's invasion of Okinawa in 1609. The systemization of modern karate can be credited to a group known as the Revivers, formed in the 19th century, which included a panel of experts from various Okinawan martial arts, and originally known as Tode or China Han Te, being a word of Chinese origin meaning hand. It was not until the early 20th century that the name karate was formally adopted. Karate became popular in the West after World War II when U.S. soldiers who had been stationed in Okinawa brought it back home with them. Many of the early U.S. practitioners had been raised on stories of macho cowboy culture, and the post-war industrialization of U.S. society had left a vacuum into which tales of amazing characters and astounding feats of strength performed by Oriental karate masters were enthusiastically received. This led to an explosion in popular media of legendary heroes battling against the odds in the name of truth, justice, and honor, characteristics highly valued in the American psyche and in the minds of martial arts. Taekwondo is an unarmed combat method with origins that date back at least 2,000 years. In 1955, it was modernized by Choi Hung-hee, and in the latter part of the 20th century, it receives influences from other arts so that it now exists as both a sport and a self-defense martial art. This spectacular and dynamic art blends hand and foot techniques and focuses on attacking opponents with kicks. In fact, it is one of the few martial arts that emphasizes kicking above the waist. Taekwondo has become one of the most popular martial arts in the world. In 2008, there were an estimated 50 million practitioners. It joined the ranks of the events in the Olympic Games when it became a full medal sport at Sydney in 2000. Two ancient arts. Most of the Taekwondo's teaching comes from two ancient arts: Taekyon, a kicking art and sport noted for fast combinations of kicks from unusual angles and for rapid-fire takedowns, and Subak, a fist-oriented art designed for the battlefield and for training early Korean warriors. Northern Chinese systems of boxing, which relied heavily on kicking as a battle technique, also influenced Taekwondo. For example, the flying side kick or jumping side kick was originally used as a technique to fell warriors on horseback. The first book of martial arts in 1932, shortly after the expulsion of the Mongols, when the Yi dynasty established rule over Korea, the country adopted a Confucian philosophy that stressed the importance of literature over warriorship. As a result, martial arts in Korea all but disappeared from the public eye. Masters and teachers withdrew from society but continued practicing their arts in remote mountain locations, including Buddhist monasteries. In 1790, the first martial arts book was made available to the public in Korea, called Muyi Dobo Tangji. It contains 24 martial disciplines known as Muyi 24-gi, which are often demonstrated inside Suwon Fortress near Seoul by soldiers in traditional dress. In 1909, Japan occupied Korea, banning the Korean language and forcing martial arts underground. At the end of the occupation in 1945, Korean martial arts resurfaced and gradually began to unite and grow in popularity under a nationalistic theme. Several new and different systems emerged. In 1955, General Choi Hung-hee, often referred to as the father of modern Taekwondo, revealed his new art to the public. Although controversy surrounds the inclusion of certain punching techniques into Taekwondo, most notably the reverse punches that bear a resemblance to karate. These hand techniques were most probably of Chinese origin. They were introduced into the Japanese islands of Okinawa and then later incorporated into karate before they were returned to Korea. The name Taekwondo was chosen because of its resemblance to the original kicking art, Taekwondo. Many of the acrobatic martial techniques in movies such as Enter the Dragon derive from Taekwondo, and so stuntmen have developed a familiarity with its practice. In the 360-degree spinning round kick, for example, the practitioner spins and jumps into a turning roundhouse kick that is placed onto either the temple or jaw of an opponent, often with devastating results. Bruce Lee probably incorporated Taekwondo kicking techniques into his art of Jeet Kune Do. Tai Chi Chuan, a martial art and health regime with an underlying Taoist philosophy. Tai Chi, often written as Tai Chi, is practiced by millions of people in China and around the world. It is characterized by slow, fluid, and graceful movements which conform to the Taoist notion of naturalism. Health benefits. In China, the art is seen as a way of restoring health or curing illness, as well as a form of socializing, particularly for older people. Although the exact origins of this martial art are not clear, it is widely held belief that the original 13 postures of Tai Chi were invented by the Taoist master Chang San Feng, who resided at the famous Wudang Mountain, a center for the study and practice of Taoist arts. It is said that the master took refuge in Wudang while being pursued by bandits, and in a dream one night learned the method of Tai Chi. Putting it into practice, he was able to defeat hundreds of attackers. Chen-style Tai Chi Chuan. What we can be more certain of is that Chen Wang-ting, a successful warrior and garrison commander in the 1640s, choreographed much of what we recognize as Tai Chi today. His original Chen-style Tai Chi Chuan forms the basis of the art's most popular form. Over the last few centuries, different styles have emerged, and although they follow Taoist principles, there are some striking differences in the forms, most notably the removal of quick, powerful thrusting and twisting actions that are found in the original Chen style. Modern Tai Chi. More recent styles of the art employ a higher stance and focus less on fighting, joint locking, and throwing, and emphasize the cultivation of health through slow, rhythmical movements that increase the flow of qi or energy throughout the body. The four main schools are Qin, Yang, Wu, and Sun style. Each school has a number of variants. Yang, for example, has a number of subsets that range in terms of complexity. Yang 24-step, also known as Beijing style, is the most popular and simple to learn. Typically, classes emphasize the three main aspects of Tai Chi, which are health, education, and martial art. The stances and the degree of concentration required when exercising movements correctly regulate blood pressure and develops muscular strength, coordination, and balance to a higher degree than when the movements are executed quickly. In addition, each action must be visualized, which enhances strategic thinking. A major characteristic of this style of martial arts is its self-defense aspect. The pupil is taught how to divert and change the direction of opponent's force rather than directly opposing the force head-on. The daily practice of moving the joints slowly in a circular fashion greatly helps their mobility, while the chi-building movements built into this form are relaxing and refreshing. Wing Chun is an extremely popular close-range style that formed the basis of Bruce Lee's fighting arts and philosophy. According to legend, it was invented by a Buddhist nun who taught the system to Yim Wing Chun, a young Chinese woman from the South who had been offered the opportunity to fight against a local warlord if she won. She would gain her freedom and would not be forced to marry him and could choose her own suitor. Surprisingly, she did win the fight, married her childhood sweetheart, and taught him the system. He went on to teach it to a number of other people and named it Wing Chun in her honor. There are many different forms of Wing Chun, but most include 6 forms, 3 empty hand, 1 wooden dummy form, and 2 weapons forms. The underlying principle is economy of movement, and practitioners are encouraged to feel their way through an opponent's guard and exploit targets with rapid-fire punches and finger thrusts. Slapping and deflecting movements are used to disorientate opponents and to shift their guard away from the center line. When fighting, practitioners deflect or intercept strikes and then go on to trap or strike an opponent. The Wing Chun punch is quite unique. It is thrown from the center of the chest as opposed to all other styles, which are thrown from the hip, the waist, or the guard. Softness and relaxation are stressed throughout the training and practice. Brute force should be avoided, as it is believed that stiff limbs allow the opponent to gain an advantage. He will be able to anticipate movements, divert the force, and use it to his advantage. The Mukjung, or wooden dummy, is a great aid in helping students understand the system and its 108 movement forms. The art's great advantage is that it can be practiced without the use of a training partner, and the dummy serves to condition hands, fists, arms, and feet through repeated quick-fire strikes and blocks against its heavy wooden body. Training in this way with the wooden dummy also encourages students to think deeply about angles of entry and attack. Muay Thai, or otherwise known as Thai boxing. This martial art goes back a few hundred years or even up to 1,000 years, and it's a combat sport known as the art of 8 limbs. It utilizes 8 points of contact: fists, elbows, knees, and shins, to deliver powerful stand-up strikes and clinching. It's heavily influenced by traditional Muay Boran, developed from ancient battlefield techniques. Modern Muay Thai is a globally practiced high-intensity sport. If you're encountering a Muay Thai fighter, know that if he has developed his conditioning, his shins are going to be very hard, his elbows, his knees, his various limbs are going to be able to take shock and deliver shock. So if you're entering into the ring with such a practitioner, know that you have to be able to deal with that. It's a very good martial art to add to your bag, and it's one that should be respected because they have tremendous experience in the ring, and their champions have won many matches around the world for decades. So I highly recommend anyone to try this martial art out and give it a chance, and also respect it for its unique capabilities. "52 blocks. The 52 block system was originated here in the United States of America by the African American community. Those indigenous Americans who suffered slavery and incarceration up until this day have developed this unique style which focuses on fighting within a small space and using elbows, hands, blocks, even kicks to dismantle their opponent in a tight situation where there's no rules and dirty fighting techniques are the only way that you're going to survive. It is known that this system was developed on the plantations here in America, where the indigenous black people were unfortunately imprisoned in slavery. And then after the end of slavery, the prison pipeline system has also created a large number of blacks in the prisons who had to use this style of self-defense in order to survive the rigorous and deadly environment of prisons. It has many names like jailhouse rock, Comstock, elbow boxing, depending on what region of the United States you're coming from. But one thing that is very, very unique about this style is the use of elbows, parrying, blocking, and simultaneous block and strike, which is very deceptive and has multiple patterns and flows, which can make the fight very difficult for many people to deal with. It's something that should definitely be explored. It's a unique style. It has its own rhythm. It has its own flow. It's actually proven to be successful in the streets and in the prisons. So this is not for play. This is for real. And if someone would like to, investigate this style, there are proponents of the 52 block system, like the 52 Blocks Federation, who are making sure that this legendary style is, continues to grow, and they're documenting its various techniques for future practitioners.
Bagua Zhang. Bagua is an internal Chinese martial art characterized by circle walking, rapid spiraling body movements, and multi-directional guerrilla-style fighting tactics and techniques. It emphasizes evasive footwork to disrupt an opponent's balance, countering with sudden palm strikes, throws, joint locks, and kicks to vulnerable areas, often fighting from the sides or back of an opponent. These are the key characteristics of this fighting style. 1, they use circle walking, the primary training method where practitioners move around the edge of a circle to develop core strength, balance, and the ability to change direction constantly. 2, spiraling body movements. Techniques use the whole body with smooth coiling and uncoiling actions, utilizing hand techniques and dynamic footwork to generate power from the waist, the Dan-chen. 3, evasive and unpredictable. Unlike styles using direct linear force, Bagua focuses on curved stepping to move behind or around an opponent, making attacks difficult to predict. 4, close range combat. Bagua specializes in close range fighting, utilizing palm strikes, spinning elbows, joint manipulations, and throwing techniques. 5, internal energy, qi. As an internal energy art, it focuses on internal energy, breathing, and mental focus, often compared to sonar for anticipating opponents' moves. So in other words, they're emphasizing the cultivation of internal energy and using it in an aggressive manner and a self-defense manner to deal with their opponents. Bagua has various components and concepts that they use to make their style very effective.
They also incorporate weapons like deer horn knives, as well as swords, spears, and other weapons. Their core principle is move like a dragon, sit like a tiger. Movements are described as fluid, yet capable of sudden, fierce power. The Bagua practitioner emphasizes continuous motion. The practitioner maintains movement throughout the fight to avoid becoming a stationary target. They emphasize changing the footwork so that there's no pattern that the opponent can detect. Footwork is central to Bagua. It's mimicking walking in mud, ensuring constant adaptability. Bagua is often considered an advanced internal style, requiring consistent, dedicated practice to master its techniques and master its complex flowing movements and combat applications. You definitely would need to get a good instructor, and you would have to be dedicated to learning the various techniques to the point where you would be able to emphasize and activate these techniques in a real live situation. I can say for personal experience, if you're not used to the movement of a Bagua practitioner, you may get caught in a spiral and find yourself in a very difficult situation because you're not used to the flow, the constant movement, the circular stepping, and the deception that they emphasize. Xingyi is one of the three main Chinese internal martial arts. It's recognized for its explosive, direct, and aggressive linear attacks. It emphasizes the concept of form and intention. Xingyi, where mental focus drives physical action to create powerful, efficient movement for combat and health, often utilizing techniques derived from the five-element theory. The key characteristics and components of Xingyi are subtle, hidden circular motions. Xingyi is known for moving aggressively forward along straight lines. It emphasizes the five elements. The foundation of the system is built on five core movements, each corresponding to an element: splitting, metal; drilling, from water; crushing, wood; pounding, from fire; and crossing, from earth. 12 animal forms: dragon, tiger, eagle, bear, monkey, and snake, which train specific body mechanics and applications. Xingyi has various training methods: static postures, standing to build structure, followed by mud walking, which is specialized stepping to develop ground force and explosive power, otherwise known as Fa Jing. Some of the key aspects is often associated with General Yu Fei, though often considered the oldest of the internal styles, closely associated with Taoist, internal alchemy, and health practices. Fighting systems. It is a practical self-defense system emphasizing rapid, efficient, short-range attacks that simultaneously defend and strike. Body mechanics. It uses chicken legs, mobile base, and the dragon body to generate full body force. There are various styles within Xingyi, and it's something that would need to be taught by an experienced master, but it is definitely a worthwhile and beneficial art, and it is known as form intention boxing. Highly recommend that you look into a master if you want to learn this form. It would take you some time to master it, but for sure, if you have the Xingyi Kung Fu style under your belt, you would be a formidable martial artist with a unique
internal martial art style. Boxing, otherwise known as the sweet science. Boxing is a combat sport and martial art where two participants wear padded gloves and fight with their fists, aiming to land punches on an opponent above the waist within a roped ring. Boxing is governed by strict rules like weight classes and 3-minute rounds, and it emphasizes technique, footwork, and defensive maneuvering to land scoring blows while avoiding opponents' hits. Key aspects of boxing. Its objective in scoring. The goal is to outscore the opponent through clean landed punches or win by a knockout, where an opponent cannot return to their feet within 10 seconds. Boxing uses protective headgear, including gloves, hand wraps, and mouth guards, often with shoes. The four main primary punches of boxing are the jab, which is the leading straight punch, the cross, the rear straight punch, the hook, the sideways straight punch, and the uppercut, which is the rising punch. Modern boxing follows the Marquis of Queensberry rules, which stipulates rounds of 3 minutes each with 1 minute rest, and prohibit fouls such as low blows, tripping, or hitting with open gloves. Boxing emphasizes proper footwork, and which is essential to the movement, alongside defensive techniques like slipping, blocking, or dodging punches. Boxing is also regulated by weight classes to ensure fairness, and it's currently divided into 17 weight classes, ranging from the minimum weight up to the heavyweight. It's also used as a high-intensity aerobic exercise to improve cardiovascular health. But we're here to talk about boxing as a martial art. Many people will attest that dealing with an adept boxer could be a challenge for many martial artists. And the reason that is that the boxer is used to striking, used to moving, used to contact, and used to getting hit, unlike many fighters. So the boxer uses techniques in a very systematic way to make sure that they deliver the most devastating blow to their opponent while taking the least amount of damage. Of course, boxing is detrimental in many ways to long-term practitioners who fight in a ring setting, only because of the impact on the brain. But it can be used as a sport, and it can also be one that can help you in a street situation if you're adept at boxing. 𝐴𝐢𝐠𝐴𝐷. 𝐴𝐢𝐠𝐴𝐷 is an ancient Chinese grappling art, often considered China's oldest martial art. It focuses on throwing or tripping an opponent to the ground using speed, leverage, and techniques. It combines standing, grappling, joint locks, and striking, often wearing a typically sleeveless, heavy-duty cotton jacket for grips. 𝐴𝐢𝐠𝐴𝐷 emphasizes quick, efficient throws over prolonged ground fighting. Unlike Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 𝐴𝐢𝐠𝐴𝐷 often avoids long ground grappling, prioritizing a quick throw, making it effective for self-defense. 𝐴𝐢𝐠𝐴𝐷 was rooted in over 6,000 years of history, with major influences from Mongolian and Manchu wrestling. The components of 𝐴𝐢𝐠𝐴𝐷 are kicking, striking, throwing, and joint locking. There are major regional styles depending on the location, which vary in their various techniques and how they encounter and implement those techniques. 𝐒𝐤 is a rugged system requiring strength, agility. You have to be able to deal with throwing, be able to deal with grappling. You have to have a measured amount of strength to deal with a 𝐒𝐤 practitioner, and you should have some understanding of wrestling and how to fall and how to counteract or neutralize a 𝐒𝐤 opponent, which will not be easy. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in looking into that, there are various 𝐒𝐤 masters out there on the internet that you can look into. And it's definitely a system that has been tested over thousands of years.
𝐸𝐴𝐾, the way of the intercepting fist in Cantonese. Date of origin, 1967. Founder, Bruce Lee. Place of origin, California, USA. JKD, or 𝐸𝐾, also commonly known as Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do, is a hybrid martial art with direct, non-classical, and straightforward movements influenced by boxing, fencing, Judo, and Wing Chun. Due to its central philosophy of using what is useful and discarding what is superfluous, Jeet Kune Do is considered by many to be one of the fathers, philosophically, of the mixed martial arts movement. However, Bruce Lee went to great lengths to promote the fact that he was neither an inventor nor a modifier. He stressed that his goal was not to create a fixed or hybrid system, but to free martial artists from the bondage placed upon them by the rigors of following and practicing a systemized doctrine. JKD's innovations. Lee's early training in Wing Chun, with its fixed and rigid stances, formed the basis of JKD. He added the mobility afforded by Western boxing's footwork and the quick entrance techniques based on the lunge from fencing. He turned to Zen Buddhism and Taoism for philosophical inspiration and encouraged practitioners to adapt and interpret techniques for themselves. Lee taught that no art is superior to any other and that the only limitation is self-limitation. Rather than training by practicing kata forms or set patterns of moves, Lee promoted the reliance on applied technique so that sparring dominates JKD training. He compared traditional martial arts, many of which do not encourage sparring as a training method, to dry land swimming. Full contact fighting or sparring is now considered the best way for a student to gain close to reality combat experience. Although many of Lee's principles have become commonplace among a large number of hybrid and mixed martial arts styles, at the time his methods were seen as radically controversial, and many traditionalists criticized his efforts to move away from the traditional and into the modern. Currently, there are two main branches of JKD. The concept branch, whose main teachers are Dan Inosanto and Larry Hartzell, believes in the constant evolution of the system and has added further grappling as well as Kali, Eskrima, and honest techniques from Filipino traditions. The original branch, which is sometimes known as Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do, teaches that students should learn the basic founding principles of the art and then expand their own individual knowledge by studying other martial arts with other teachers. Its main teachers include James Lee, Andy Kimura, Ted Wong, and Jerry Petit, who were also students of Bruce Lee. 3 aspects. JKD has 3 central aspects: efficiency, directness, and simplicity. Efficiency stresses that an attack must do the job it is intended to do. Directness means that the techniques must be as direct as possible, and simplicity requires that the art must not be overcomplicated and must be easy to learn and apply. Lee's intuition and highly developed sense of body language particularly his inherent understanding of nonverbal and telegraph movements prior to an opponent launching an attack, enabled him to move quickly and effectively. His training manuals and notes show that during an important phase of Jeet Kune Do's development, he became obsessed with studying the movements of other people. For hours on end, he would wander the city streets and follow complete strangers, mimicking their exact movements, the way they walked, where they placed their weight, as well as their bearing and mannerisms. While studying European fencing techniques, Lee noted that prior to making an effective attack, a fencer must move forward into range. The initial movement, in fact, provides an opportunity to intercept that attack, to change its direction, and to reply with force. This is one reason why Lee called his system Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. JKD's 5 ways of offensive attack borrow movements from the fencing. One way is attacking by drawing. By leaving an opening, a fighter draws his opponent into attack, then counters, and gains the upper hand. Another way is progressive indirect attack, as an opponent's attention is diverted when an area of his body is attacked. A fighter follows by attacking another area that has become exposed. Famous statement by Bruce Lee. Patterns, techniques, or forms touch only the fringe of genuine understanding. Truth cannot be perceived until we come to fully understand ourselves and our potentials. After all, knowledge in the martial arts ultimately means self-knowledge. Bruce Lee, Black Belt Magazine, 1971.